Well, a little over 50 years ago, I was down there on North Main, L.A., and this joint was a dance hall, and they had an organ there, and they had a bar, and they had a lot of women. And that's what brought me down there. And I was out, to be honest, I was out looking for somebody with some money. I was running out of money, trying to feed all these women and keep them drunk. Anyhow, I run across Bonnie down there, sitting at the bar, and she had a drink in her hand, and she was all dressed up, boy, like $1 million. And I really thought she had $1 million, because she had this dark green suit on with this little hat on, and damn feathers sticking up like that, you know, and she had on leather gloves, and they matched her purse, and they matched her shoes too. So, by God, that's really going some, you know. And I thought I really struck a gold mine. Anyhow, I got her up to my apartment, and well, we had to talk this thing over, you know, for this new acquaintance, and asked each other how many times we'd been married, and she'd been married a couple of times, and I told her 4. I said, well, we're not getting married again, by God, that's for sure. You know, that's enough. So a little while later, we got drunk and went to Yuma and got married. And we really needed AA then, but we wasn't ready, and so we finally threw in the towel. We drank for 10 years right after we got married, and it's a wonder we didn't kill each other. It was terrible. Really wasn't any fun in that damn 10-year drinking, I'll tell you that. It was just a struggle, by God, to keep drinking and to keep working, because we started changing jobs, you know, so they went through that routine. And anyhow, we decided that, my best friend died from alcoholism, and one by one they were starting to go then from booze, and we knew we was going to have to do something about it. So we decided to join AA, and we did. We came into AA, and we struggled with that for about 1.5 years. That is, I did. You know, I was hard of hearing then, and now I spent $1,000 for a sound system up here so I could hear what the hell's going on. I should have been wearing it then when they're reading these 12 steps and 12 traditions. Anyhow, we had a lot of fun, and I'm getting that punch now to shut up. So thanks a lot. Thank you, Jim.
That's our story. But he's not the only one that thought they had a lot of money. The way he's throwing money over those bars, I thought he had a lot of money too. So the first one I call on, is it right? I would like to call on the man who's been here the longest, Jack P.
My name is Jack Rose, and I'm an alcoholic. September 16th of this coming September, I'll have 45 years on the program. The reason I'm staying around here is because they have told me all these years that the membership of Alcoholics Anonymous, 95% of the time tell you the absolute truth. And I want to either prove or disprove that, and I've been coming around under those circumstances for this period of time. And it isn't going to be long until I'm going to prove that once and for all. Because when I came in here, they told me if I'd stay sober 50 years that I could have a beer, and I got 5 more years to go. We're going to hold a convention in the downtown in the big place down there where everybody can come, 104,000 people, and watch me take a beer. And then we'll see if Los Angeles survives beyond that period of time. But it's always nice to be able to say that through the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous, through the things that I've heard and the people that I've met, through the experiences that I've had, good and bad, that there has been a continual growth pattern towards the spiritual values of living under the precepts of the principles of recovery. Those 12 little things that have to be done on a daily basis to bring us forth to the point where we can understand full well that in spite of being an alcoholic, living to drink and drinking to live being our lot, that we are able to survive at any given time under anything that faces us if we would make the decision not to take a drink today. And I have been doing that now, as I say, for almost 45 years. Hopefully it will continue for the other 5 years, of course. And then after that, we'll see. If I make the 50 years, then I'm going to go for 100. And if I make the 100, we'll have 3 beers for everybody that belongs to Alcoholics Anonymous. God bless you and keep coming back.
Guys like that get me going. And now Thelma, she's been sober about as long, about the same year.
Thank you. Good evening. And I was really impressed to see all these new people over here on this side when they stood up. That was really nice to see so many taking an interest in coming into our fellowship of AA. When I first came into AA, I didn't get here drinking malted milks. I got here drinking Four Roses, bourbon whiskey. And my husband found out about Alcoholics Anonymous and decided that he phoned in and they sent a couple and I went out to a sanitarium, San Fernando Valley. We lived in Hollywood. And I wondered, these people, why were they taking me and using their gas rationing? It was in World War II and gas rationing was on, maybe you remember that. And some of you. And why they were spending their precious gasoline to take me, a total stranger, and my husband way out to San Fernando Valley to a sanitarium to sober me up. And they said, oh, that's AA work. You'll be doing this yourself someday. And I thought, oh, no, not me. I'm no little Pollyanna. I'm no little do-gooder. I don't want anybody else. If they want to drink, that's fine with me. Anyway, on the way out there, they told me that alcoholism was a disease, and this was news to me. In fact, this is what Alcoholics Anonymous is so wonderful for. They discovered that it was a disease and lifted it right out of the moral issue class and explained our powerlessness over taking the first drink and the obsession and physical allergy. And you know, that made sense to me. Anyway, after we came home from the sanitarium, we went to our first AA meeting on Beechwood Drive in Hollywood, and everybody came up to my husband. You see, there weren't too many women alcoholics then, and came up to my husband and asked him, do you have a drinking problem, sir? And he says, yes, indeed, I do. My wife here. Can you help her? So we got off to a start there. But in this new town, there was a group called a Mother Group, and that was the original AA group of Southern California. And I went to this Mother Group, and we went to groups. We were told to go to group meetings every night, or at least a year, which we did, and put our sobriety first. Nothing else was important as staying sober. My husband went with me. So at this Mother Group, we were sitting there one night, and Frank Randall was the speaker. They didn't have microphones then, and he was a very loud-voiced man. And we were sitting right in the front row, and he pointed his finger. So you've got a bottle sitting at home on the kitchen shelf. He says, you know, he says, you might as well trust it as much as you would a pet rattlesnake. He said, if you give yourself a little time and not have any alcohol in the house, and you have to go and buy it and run to the store for it, at least he said you might give yourself a break of 3 or 4 minutes and call somebody in AA or have a little change of thought before you. Not so handy to have that bottle in the house. I turned to my husband and I said, why did you tell him I had a bottle sitting on the kitchen shelf for? I hadn't quite let go of that bottle. I wanted sobriety, but that was sort of a security. Or in case somebody, friends, we did a lot of social drinking, and some friends might drop in, and of course I'd have to be hospitable and send them a drink, and I'd have to have a bottle, all those sort of things. But Frank Randall shook me up. So when we got home, my husband didn't tell me what to do. AA said I had to make the decisions for myself as an alcoholic. And so when we got home, I gave it to him, and I said, take it down to the store. I couldn't pour good bourbon whiskey down the sink. So I said, take it down to the store and give it away to somebody who can drink and get it out of the house. I really want sobriety, and I don't want any alibi crutches or anything like that. And I learned the rigorous self-honesty in all we do, but sobriety comes first. So when John said, I didn't tell him that you had a bottle sitting on the shelf. He said, he just said that. I wanted to clear that up. My husband hadn't told him. And, there's so many wonderful things of being a part of Alcoholics Anonymous and the people and groups you go to. And we took trips up to Vancouver, British Columbia, and met AAs up there. I met a little Indian girl up there who wanted me to sponsor her, and I told her I couldn't. But I did with letters and tape recorders and sent up to her. And the result of carrying a message that way, she took those tapes and her sobriety back to her tribe and passed the word on back there and got AA started back there in her tribe. So we carry the message, and it has been such an exciting life. Just recently, Sybil, maybe you heard of her, just had her 50-year-old birthday of sobriety. And the people in the Pasadena groups gave her a party celebrating it. And she was too frail to come down here. She's not well, and she's too frail to be down here tonight. But she passed around a poem that she wrote 50 years ago for this mother group, the original group of AA, Mort Joseph, Frank Randall, these fellows. So Southern California's AA song, ALCO, Holics Anonymous. Not a headache in the crowd. No, not one of us. It's hiya, Mort, and hiya, Frank, and how are you today? We all thank our lucky stars that we are in AA. Now, this is 50 years ago, and it's just a bunch of drunks who found a miracle through Alcoholics Anonymous in a book, passed it on, and look at us now. So, thank you for letting me be here, and I'm grateful to God I could be here and share with you.
I was asked to read this, and I forgot to read it. This is a participation meeting. To keep it simple and allow fairness to all, we will pull names from a basket. When your name is called, please come to the podium and share with us, starting with your sobriety date. We also have a microphone down on the floor for anyone not able to come to the podium. May I ask those who are called on to share and respect the fact that we have many participants tonight, and we must try to keep our sharing to 5 minutes. This way we can get as many to the podium as possible. Thank you for your cooperation, because they really did cut us off short. We were supposed to have this meeting a little longer, and we got to cut it out at 8. So I'm going to start calling names. Well, wouldn't you know, I called Jack P. no kidding. This is Jack. Got his name first. He's already talked. Vince Mack. Vince MC.
I'm Vince McD from Irvine, California. I also escaped from Brooklyn, New York. A couple of friends here. Does the program work? You better believe it does. Because I got here with a brain that was badly damaged, lungs that weren't working, a stomach that was poisoned, and a pair of feet that were dead from the knees down. Does the program work? Yeah. I just got a new knee last week. The first thing I had to be taken care of was the stomach. And the doctor that got a hold of me through the 12-step call says, your stomach is about the color of that girl's blouse inside. He says, you're all poisoned. Because I was drinking beer, whiskey, and wine. 12 quarts of beer a day, a quart of whiskey, and a quart of wine. And driving a truck in the city of New York. Want to laugh? I don't have a record anywhere. I've never been arrested for alcoholism. I've never been in institutions. I've never been in jail, but I should have been in all those places. I was very fortunate that the program worked. And it worked because even in my last hour of need, when I wouldn't talk to God, he talked to me. And he said, pick up the phone. And I was on the floor in a house on Long Island, and it scared the hell out of me. I know when you hear a voice, you're nuts. And I was nuts, but I didn't want to be that way. So the voice said, pick up the phone. And I picked it up, not having anybody to call. But the amazing thing was, the noise on the phone matched the noise in my head, which had been going on for years. I don't know how many of you people have that noise. It goes something like this. So when you have no one to call, and you've got no friends, and your wife doesn't care anymore, and your kids couldn't care less, what has to happen? The higher power has to take over. So I dialed O. That was the only way I could get somebody to talk to. And the woman came on the phone, and she said, can I help you? And I said, I don't see how. And her next question was, have you been drinking? I said, oh my God, have I been drinking? I said, it's running right out of my hair. Down my face and down my body and down into my shoes and socks, and they're rotting off me. And I said, when the hell would a telephone operator ask if you're drinking? Nobody ever asked me that in all the years that I drank. You know? By dialing O that my higher power wanted me to dial, I got an AA operator 15 years in the program. She's the one that took over. She's the one that's responsible for me being here today. Because I would have killed myself that day somehow, because I didn't want to live anymore. You know, I'm 73 today, 35 years in the program, and no matter how many years we have, it's still just for today, you know, because I buried my wife last year, and she had 22 years in the program. And you know, after praying to God for 34 years, I cursed him again. And I said, what a hell of a nerve you got, taking the only woman away from me I ever loved. And I was pissed off at her for leaving, you know. And the book tells us that. There's going to come a time when we can't talk to God anymore. But get back to it as soon as you can. It only took me 3 months to get on my knees and say, I didn't mean that, God. It's not your fault she died. And it's not her fault that she's not with me. She just had to go. And it's all right. I've gotten over the deep grief. You know, and where can you go when you're all alone? But you're never alone. You got to go to AA meetings. So I go to 10 meetings a week. And that keeps me happy and up. So if you're new in the program, keep coming back. Even if you drink, keep coming back. You're going to meet somebody that's going to lay the message on you. And the message is, don't drink and come to meetings.
Dottie M.
I'm Dottie, and I am an alcoholic, and my sobriety date is September 23rd, 1957. That man touched me so I may cry before I'm through, which seems to happen to me every once in a while, especially when I come here, because 11 of the happiest years of my sobriety were spent in Torrance. And anyway, when the first Frank talked about going to the bar to meet the women, I went to the bar because there were men there, and I didn't like women, and I had a bad time with women. Every time I went out with women, their boyfriends or their husbands got mad at me because they didn't come home and it was my fault. I don't know how that worked, but so I finally wound up staying away from women and doing my drinking alone and with men. And luckily, when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous in Fresno, there were about 3 women sober in Fresno, and they went to a meeting once a month whether they needed it or not. Luckily, the rest of the time it was me and the men, and it was wonderful. I didn't have to fight with the women, and the men thought I was cute, and the only sad part of that was I had 2 men sponsors. It took me 8.5 years to come to believe in God, and I damn near died drunk, because if I had not come to believe in God at the end of that 8.5 years, I was that far from a drink. And I'm very grateful to the fact that when I came, as Thelma said, we were told to go to meetings every day. I had no choice. I had 4 kids at home, and I was 3 months pregnant with number 5. My husband drank every night and was gone, and so I had no place else to go but Alcoholics Anonymous, because the baby drove me crazy and the teenagers drove me crazy, and so I came to AA, luckily. So the meetings and the people who put up with me, because I came in here screaming atheism, and I screamed it for about 8.5 years. And I'd go to meetings and people would wish the floor to open up and swallow me, I know. But, you know, they passed me around and they were kind to me and they kept telling me to keep coming back. And as I say that, at the end of that time, the ABCs in the program are what brought me to God. And that was that thing of God could and would have sought. And what I had thrown out 8.5 years before, I had left about that much. And there was enough to build on. And with that, my life started. I was able to open the book and read the book and go into the steps and work the steps and learn to love women and learn to love all people. And with that, you know, my life is wonderful. As I said, I spent 11 of the best years of my life in this area. And when Dan died, I stayed another couple of years down here. And I went back to Fresno where I'd gotten sober, and I've never been sorry that I went back there. Somebody said, how do you stand the heat? And I said, well, I've got an air-conditioned car, an air-conditioned apartment, and an air-conditioned job. So, you know, that's how I stand the heat. But it was 109 yesterday, and it was supposed to be 115 today, so I was glad as hell to be coming down here. And thanks a lot. I love everybody.
Thank you, Dottie. Royal, 30 years.
My name is Royal. I'm an alcoholic. September 7th, 1960, I called from the corner of La Brea and Centinela from a phone booth to the central office downtown. And it hasn't been necessary for me to drink since, and I don't take no credit for it at all. Because the funny part of it was I called down there, but I didn't have the courage to get into a meeting for a month. Because, you know, I didn't have much courage without any booze in my belly. And so it took me a month to get into the old Western Avenue group, Alano Club, and I was sober that whole cockeyed month, and I was a daily drinker and almost a daily drunk. I heard a guy talk once. He talked for about an hour. He ended up, I can't stay sober, but we can. And I think that was about the shortest description of Alcoholics Anonymous I ever heard. But because I do think that that's probably the way it works. I met a lot of wonderful people on the program over the years. My wife passed away last September, just 2 days before my 30th AA birthday. And it was quite a blow because we had been married almost 62 years. But I'd seen people go through some tragedies in AA. Seen lots of people go through tragedies in AA and not drink. So I got a little of their courage, and I've been able to handle it. It's been a wonderful program for me. I lived in a mental hell for a lot of years. No drunk driving arrests, no hospitals, no police. But I lived in a mental hell for a lot of years, trying to control it, trying to just have a couple of drinks. I heard one guy say one time, insanity is the inability to learn from experience. And I never learned that I just couldn't take just one drink and one beer and stop. I'd failed to do it for 10 years at least. But it's never dawned on me that the next time I'd just have one or two. So as far as I'm concerned, that must be insanity. I tried to give this thing away because I think that if we don't try to give it away, we don't keep it. I think it's there's a lot of the corny sayings you hear around AA, but to me they're very true. Just a few words. And I've met a lot of wonderful people, like I say. My wife and I went to a lot of conventions here in Bakersfield and Las Vegas, Palm Springs, and this is the second one I've done since she passed away, and I still love the program. I drank to try to be comfortable. That's why I drank. I felt so damned uncomfortable in life without anything, so I drank to be comfortable, and I'm coming to AA for the same reason, because I've remained comfortable now pretty well comfortable for about 30 years, I fell in love with the program, like I say, and I liked everything about it, and I've worked a little as a secretary and a coffee maker and whatnot. Whatever was asked of me, I felt obligated to do it, and I haven't said no to, I don't think, more than a half a dozen things in the 30 years I've been on the program, and I felt guilty about saying no then, but it's a wonderful program. I'm glad it was here when I got so damn miserable that I couldn't stand myself and didn't have the courage of suicide. So to me, I'm very grateful.
Thank you, Royal. This guy, he was at my first meeting, Frank Priest.
Hi, my name is Frank, and I'm an alcoholic. And my sobriety date is May 20th, 1949. And just to add flavor to our affair, you hear people say, I didn't do anything, God did it all. I give God the controlling interest in my sobriety, but somehow, and I guess I could trace it back to the inspiration that I got from my higher power, I showed up a lot of damn meetings I didn't want to go to, and I went to a lot of general service things, and Jesus, those can be boring as shit. I want to warn you about that. But see, everything in AA that has a price to be paid, and they would always fall on one of my fun meeting nights, and I had to usually leave that meeting and go to the, when alcoholics are trying to manage and manipulate and stuff, it gets boring as hell. But see, who you ran into at these service meetings were people who were willing to serve. And see, I'm not going to take a poll here tonight, but I can almost guarantee you that every person that's sitting in the old-timers seats has been involved in service. My friend Pat Martin is sitting around here, and he was one of the ones that sort of instigated a lot of stuff in AA in the South Bay. One of the privileges of long-time sobriety that I have encountered is not only do I get to keep seeing and sharing with people, but see, I knew Pat's mother. She came in a couple of years after I did. Pat and his sister, then Pat's daughter. And Pat's daughter, who lives up in Vancouver now, has a couple of kids. And I told Pat, because he'd had a lot of trouble with his daughter, I said, if that grandkid of yours has any trouble, I just don't want to hear about it. No, it's wonderful, and it is miraculous. See, I love the story about the phone call, and you know this thing about don't leave until the miracle happens. If you're new, in my opinion, from me, I mean that literally. You take miracles out of AA, this spiritual program, and you got doodly shit. There's nothing left. Yeah, I knew a number of people, and I've had the experiences myself, of just marvelous things happening, and there was no other way than what God had intervened somehow. I couldn't have possibly done it. My friend Tom Redgate had an experience like that with the phone call situation. There's a story in one of the stories in the book about that. The miracles will happen, but somehow we have to be open to them. I came in, I was 27 originally. I had to go back out and try one more time a couple of months later, and I was 28 when I came here to stay. And there was nobody in the Inglewood area that I could find that was under 30. So that gave me kind of a funny feeling, and every once in a while I'd have these reservations. But see, I did go back out and try it, and see, what the secret blessing that I put on people in places like the Way Back In and these detox things is that booze has knocked the hell out of them, and that booze has stopped working. Now again, see this idea of you can get off the elevator at any floor, that might work back in New York, but out here we're given to ranch-type houses. There's only one floor, baby. See, if you go down one, you've gone as far as you can go in California. I particularly, and I don't mean to I have certain things in the book that kind of bothered me, because one of the phrases in there, we are like men who lost their legs, we never grow new ones. And toward the tail end of my drinking, I had wound up in a military hospital where I spent 21 months, and all around me were people who had lost legs and arms and things, particularly legs, and I saw them be fitted with artificial limbs, and they could dance and walk and bicycle and do all kinds of things. And when I sat in my meetings in that first year, even after I'd been out once, I couldn't believe for quite a long time, and I want to share that with the newcomers, I couldn't believe for a long time that I could possibly make it out there without booze. And let me tell you that you can. It takes varying lengths of time. See, there isn't any time frame for how long it takes you to get to be an alcoholic. The shortest one that I know is 9 months. And there isn't any time frame for recovery. You're not supposed to be any place at 6 months or 2 years. And see, I get rather upset with people who say, I'm in the terrible twos. Well, I hit the terrible twos when I was about 7. And I went to a shrink at 20 years, and I went to a psychologist at 27. And every once in a while, the old farts that were around when I was there, well, you don't need those guys. You just do what the book says. Well, the book says go and see shrinks or psychiatrists on page 133. I'm constantly learning stuff, especially when I go to places like the Way Back In, where there's a whole like a section this big of nice, fresh drunks constantly, and I tell them that. I'm glad you're here. You helped me. Most of them have been out 2 or 3 times. See, but somebody there, and I don't know whether it was one of the repeaters or something, what they said to me is that this, I wish if I knew the name, I'd give them the credit. This is a guaranteed program. If you fulfill the conditions contained in the 12 steps, you will get sober and you will stay sober. I love to say that because every once in a while, especially as an old-timer, I have people run up to me and say, did you hear about Charlie? With 19 years, he got drunk. See, and if I don't know about Charlie, but I had 2 sponsors, each of whom had 9 years and got drunk. One of them didn't make it back, and one of them did. When I checked these things out, see, they did not get struck drunk. They were not fulfilling the conditions. See, if I had a God who let me fulfill the conditions and took my sobriety away, I wouldn't want him. You will not be struck drunk if you're new. If you fulfill those conditions to the best of your ability, not mine or somebody else's, the best of your ability, as you understand this program. But if you have a resentment, and you say, screw that, I don't care, I know about resentments, I understand what the program teaches about resentments, but that son of a bitch, I'm never going to make an amend to him. You are on your slip. You're already on your slip. Old Gene, who is an old-timer, taught me that. He said, taking a drink is not the slip. Taking a drink is evidence of a slip earlier. So if you will fulfill those conditions, you're going to get sober and stay sober, just like Dr. Bob said when they would ask him if he expected to stay sober. And I say what he said. Yes, I expect to stay sober if I keep thinking like I am and doing like I am. I'm going to keep fulfilling those conditions. See, and that's what's waiting for you. Again, to the newcomers. See, you probably have to sort of hang on if you felt like me, that you just really couldn't stand it, life sober. See, but if you can get through that initial phase, sort of boot camp phase, See, what's waiting for you, and I promise you this, if you'll dedicate yourself to this program, what you'll have is a rich, full life. Better than almost all the other people you're going to meet in this life. See, I've been out working amongst them where the huge majority of people have no program for their lives at all. They're going to jump in the grave, and they're not going to know even why they're here. So if you're sort of sorry for yourself now, be assured, a rich, full life, full of laughter and good fellowship. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Guys like that kept me sober the first few years. Lola K.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lola, and I'm an alcoholic. And of course, I'm very glad to be here. I'm also glad to be an alcoholic. When I went to my first meeting, I only went because my daughter, who was on my back constantly about my drinking, said to me that if I would go to one AA meeting, she wouldn't bother me about my drinking anymore. So I bought that, and she got somebody to take me. And I'd been nipping all day because I was a daily drinker, and I didn't have a conscious desire to stay sober or get sober. I didn't know a thing about AA, but these people took me to Southgate, and the strangest thing happened. They met me at the door and welcomed me, and I hadn't been welcomed for a long time anywhere, and being a daily drunk. And so the next morning, having been drinking the day before, but the next morning I didn't take a drink, and it still amazes me. I don't understand that. That's one of the miracles Frank talked about. And I stayed sober for a month, went out for 2 days, came back, and I've been sober ever since. And that was September the 10th, 1954. In September, I'll have 37 years. My family never accepted my membership in AA. They never understood, like Thelma said, in those days there weren't that many women coming in, and we were looked down on so much, especially by my non-drinking family. I was the only alcoholic. It wouldn't do me any good to go to ACA or any of those places because I got nobody to blame. You know, I didn't get it from my parents. So I just got anyway, I couldn't burn up alcohol, I guess. So anyway, some time passed, and I was having terrible problems at home. As I said, nobody accepted my membership in AA. They turned against me. And my husband, who was continually drinking, gave me such a bad time, and I didn't know what to do till somebody suggested I join an institutional committee, which I did. And for over 20 years, I've been a member, or was a member, of the institutional committee, first in Los Angeles and then in the harbor area. And that turned my whole life around. That's the second best thing that ever happened to me, my sobriety first, and then later on, being a member of the H&I committee and going to the prisons and hospitals. Wonderful, wonderful things happened to me there. And nothing changed at home except my attitude changed, so they couldn't get to me. They lost power over me. And so I'm very grateful for that. 2 days ago, my daughter, who is 61 now, the one that gave me such a bad time, both before and after sobriety, called me. And she said, "Mom, there's something I want to tell you I haven't told you." She said, "It bothers me that all through the years, you loved your AA people more than you did me." So I told her, I said, "Honey, I love you. You're my firstborn." But I wasn't quite honest with her. I didn't tell her I don't like her. And well, there wasn't any of them. All of those relatives, not one went to an AA meeting or Al-Anon or any place, so they don't even... I don't know her, and she doesn't know me. but I know you, and there are people in this room that are so close to me that I love with all my heart and have helped me through the years. I'll never forget them. Those are my family. Somebody said, the trouble with Lola is she thinks blood's thicker than water. Well, I don't. I kind of love my kids, but we don't have anything in common. But I love all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lola. Rush, what is that? Rush, 31.
Thank you. Rachid, an alcoholic. Lola said, may I call you Richard? I said, by all means. We served in the same institutional committees together. I changed my name. Would you blame me? It's spelled R-A-C-H-I-D. It was pronounced Rachid. You know. But I'm very fortunate to have been sober since April 11, 1960. And I just turned 60 years of age, May 25th, last May. So I'm learning to grow old graciously. And by the examples, I was meditating at the Botanical Gardens. Some of you might not know where it's at. Avail yourself of that facility. And I had a little prayer that invoking some of the old timers that are meeting up, you know, the big meeting up there. A guy by the name of Walter O'Keefe. Remember him? He used to pass away a prayer. He had a page, one side of prayer and the other side of meditation. It was rather lengthy, but apropos. And then he modified it. He had a way about him. He gives you this prayer and he says, claim it, make it yours, it's yours, and improve on it and pass it on. And would you please, when you improve on it, send me the prayer. Wow, if you have an ego like mine, has the speediest and the strongest recuperating powers, you know what I mean? But it did me a lot of good. So I was meditating, and I remember that prayer. Thank you, God, for what you've given me. Thank you for what you've taken away from me. And thank you for what you've left me. And the improvement part was, with what you left me, now it is my responsibility to improve upon. For those of us that have been here a while, surely we've served. I'm grateful to my sponsor, Jerry, who was sitting there, who introduced me to the general service, became a committee person and so forth, and then the institutional committees and things like that. But anyway, sitting in the Botanical Gardens, I heard in my head try to formulate this little joke, and I hope it comes out all right. And this guy passed away. He wants to share a lot, because he was told very early, giving it away is to keep it. Anyway, he passed away, and St. Peter's met him at the gate. And St. Peter says, man, I got good news for you. What is it? He says, we're going to have an AA meeting tonight for you. Wow, as happy as a lark. And furthermore, you're going to be sharing. Wowee. And man, do I have a story, he told him. He says, what are you going to tell him? He says, I'm going to tell him about the old Pittsburgh flood that I survived. He said, are you sure you're going to tell him about the big Pittsburgh flood that you survived? He said, I sure am. He says, I just want you to know that Noah will be at that meeting. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. I guess we got time for one more, haven't we, Jerry? Dr. What is that? Dorothy? Oh, there she is. That kind of confused me.
I'm Dorothy Sweeney, and I'm an alcoholic. I looked in the door of Alcoholics Anonymous in the late summer of 1958, but I became a retread because I could somewhat admit, but I could not accept the fact that I was one of those. So I went out and drank for another 18 months. And in June 10th, 1960, I became a member of this fellowship. You know, I was sitting there looking at these lovely ladies sitting here, these long-timers, and I thought, you know, they look like they belong to the DAR. And then I thought, well, they do. The daughters of the alcoholic revolution. Roger, where are you? Our general chairman. Is he here? I owe you a vote of thanks because the assignment I had last night was to do the closing prayer. And you know what that means, girls? What that means, girls? I had the last word, as usual. Let me tell you what I thought was normal behavior in drinking. I was married to my children's father, was a police officer. God, I hate to say that. Because that, to me, equates with a built-in warden. And we lived in Florida. I came into the program in Pompano Beach, Florida. Had some wonderful people there, just like sitting here. There was only one woman in the group. I was the second one, and I was the youngest, and I was 38. So now if you want to add up 31 and 38, I'm 69 going on 70. And I love every damn minute of it. I tell you, it gets better. And I get younger. You know why I look so good? Because I was so well preserved in alcohol for so long. Anyway, you know, we had the jungles down there, if you will, the scrub palmetto and stuff, lots of snakes. And I mean, that was for real, not just the ones I saw. But he had to wear these, you know, police boots. So if he had to go in and look for whatever. And I was a beer drinker. And you know, we have our little fancy ways of doing things. I refused to drink out of a bottle until desperation drove me to it. Had to have a glass. And I only bought beer by the quart because, you know, there was just never enough in those little cans. So it was by the quart. I'd take his boots. Now, this was perfectly normal thinking to me. And I'd hide those quarts of beer in his police boots. And it never occurred to me that maybe he was going to wear them. But of course, by the time he got around to it, the beer was gone anyway. And I thought these things were normal. After all, you know, this is the way we think. And that was always my problem. I didn't know how to think. And when I came into the program, you told me there was a big sign up there that said, think. And I thought, well, I've done that all my life. But I didn't know I wasn't doing much thinking. I was just kind of reacting to whatever it was, whatever slot you put me in, that's where I was. One of the most glorious signs that I saw when I came through the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous, when I could finally focus, it said, "You're not alone." That was the most welcome sight I had ever seen, because I always felt alone, always. And my sponsors told me that alcoholism is called a lonely disease. And it was for me, because I was predisposed to being an alcoholic. I still am. Today, I don't have a problem with drinking because I don't drink. But I had to learn how to live. And you have given me the most glorious formula for living that we all know. And I agree. There's no one on the face of the earth that's got what we've got. Pay a big price for it, but you know, I'm glad I'm alcoholic. How we used to shiver and shake when we heard that. Because it was a disgrace, and it was a moral issue, and it was demoralizing. And again, I think one of the ladies mentioned, they didn't look upon alcoholism as a disease. They just didn't. There was no facilities, at least where I was, that I could afford to go to. If you're a beer drinker, how can you afford Palm Beach? Not unless somebody was paying the freight for you. That wasn't the bars that I drank in. I didn't have any rich ones around, believe me. I had to work 2 jobs to afford what I was doing. And they didn't tell me 90 days, 90 meetings in 90 days, because they knew I couldn't count that high. So they said, "Dorothy, you just sit down and you listen, and you take the cotton out of your ears and put it in your mouth, and all you have to do is to be bright enough." I thought, well, I'm very bright. At least I got here. And they said, "Yes, you did, by God's grace, and being more dead than alive and wanting to die. And all you have to do is to learn how to count to 1. And I thought, well, gee, that's great. Nobody ever told me that. Learn how to count to 1. And that meant 1 drunk, this 1 drunk. Staying away from 1 drink, 1 day at a time, keeping it that simple. And I could add 24 hours to 24 hours, or they would add up themselves. I didn't have to count that. They said, don't look beyond 24 hours. Take care of now. So I haven't quite learn to count to 90. Now, if you've been told 90 meetings in 90 days, great. But you got to start with one. And keep it that simple. This one drunk can stay away from one drink, one day at a time, and that was a miracle. And I bless you all for being here tonight. And I'm so glad I'm here tonight. And we're going to stay around long enough, girls, to recruit the rest of them in the DAR, aren't we, huh? And as far as the doctor bit, that's another gift of sobriety. It stands for Doctor of Divinity. And when I was given that degree, my AA friends kept me well in balance. And they said, "Oh, Dorothy, you mean you finally got the title of a damn drunk?" And I said, "Yes, and I love it. Thank you and bless you."
I'm real sorry, folks, but this paper says I have to quit at 7:45. We're sorry we have to bring this meeting to a close, but our time is up. Let's hear a nice applause and give a special thanks to all the long-timers that have helped pave the road for our recovery.